Commitment and knowing your goals and knowing like exactly what you need to be doing.
Because we all know change doesn't happen without change. So, and that's Tyler decided to make the changes to make the changes. I don't actually know if you crack backs or not. That seems like something. Yeah. Don't go cracking backs, people. We don't have the liability for that. Like, I got a license. Now what?
Now what?
What do I do now? Like, 90% of this test does not apply to my day-to-day. So I am David Denning, one of the founders of Jumpstart Go, which runs the Facebook group Marketing for Insurance Agents that you guys are in. And like I said, we created this group as a resource for you guys. We really appreciate you being here, but we're primarily known for working directly with agents and agency owners in our programs, Closers Click, Producers Academy, and Legends. And we absolutely love working, helping them grow and scale their businesses, their income, and working directly with them, and wouldn't have it any other way. So with that, we have a very special guest today, Tyler Webb. Tyler, I would love if you intro yourself before we dive in today.
Yeah, sure. Like you said, my name's Tyler Webb. I just started doing insurance, I would say probably November, December of last year. I've been doing physical therapy for about a decade. It's been a good career, and it just got to the point kind of where I was looking for something else. I don't know. I just saw a lot of turnover in our profession, and my income was pretty much up to other people. How many referrals can I get? How many visits are allowed? So I was kind of capped. So I was looking for something different to do for probably a couple of years. And then finally got an opportunity to get a health insurance license or an insurance license, and went and did the exam and got that done, and then started kind of in the health industry. And I was doing okay. My goal though was to, as I said earlier, quit therapy, and I wasn't seeing that happening anytime soon. One of the first things I did do though was join the MFIA. I saw that when I was just happened to be going through Facebook, and I was like, wow, this looks like it could be useful. 35,000 insurance people, maybe give me a little bit of advice. And that's kind of how I met David and Elle. And since then, a lot's changed.
Been a whirlwind, right? So our in your neck of the woods, tornado, in our neck.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the part of the country, right? So I am extremely excited to have Tyler join us today, because I know you all are going to be inspired by his story, or either relate to it, or that's part of your vision and ambition. So Tyler went from you describe it how he wants, but maybe a mundane job, or maybe repetitive job a little bit, cracking backs as a physical therapist. I don't actually know if you crack backs or not. That seems like something else. Yeah. Don't go cracking backs, people. We don't have the liability for that. But it makes a good line. Cracking backs as a physical therapist with limited earning potential, like he said. He was kind of already hitting the cap there. To finally taking the leap and becoming a full-time insurance agent, hitting 8,000 production in his first month, then tripling that to 25,000 AP with his team by the third month. Today, we're diving into Tyler's strategies for taking his insurance business from part-time to full-time, and how he's able to do that within just a few months. So get your pens, get your notepads, get everything ready, maybe something bigger than this, to take notes to dive in today, because we got a lot of amazing stuff that we're going to be talking about. So Tyler, I know you highlighted this briefly, but let's get a little more detailed, especially at the beginning, is giving us the backstory. We started working together in February, and like you started kind of November, December-ish, started with your license and getting started in the industry. And you've had an incredible amount of growth since February. But take us back to February, and what challenges were you facing then? What was going on right then?
Yeah, so like I said, I was doing health insurance, and I wasn't, thriving. There was lots of reasons why. But so I like I said, I joined the group, and I was just kind of following along with some people's success. And I saw a lot of people, promoting the Closers Click. And I just sat down with my wife one evening. I was like, listen, if I'm going to make the next step in this business, I'm going to have to do something differently than I'm doing right now. And she's like, yeah, I agree. And I was like, so there's this group, there's trainings, there's education, there's one-on-ones, there's videos, there's demos. They walk you through how to bring in warm referrals. So I was like, this is something I think that would be super helpful. And she agreed. And so we made the commitment. I joined the Closers Click, and that led to other things. And it's been super helpful working with you and Elle. And yeah, I wouldn't change anything.
And I definitely look forward to dive into that, what specifically you put in place in the business and started doing. But coming back, you said there's a lot of reasons it wasn't necessarily thriving. And, what were some of those things that you were looking for that ultimately, led up to join the Closers Click? But like, what were those things that it wasn't thriving? Was it, and it could be a combination, but I'd love to dive into some of these as far as time, having a system or a structure? Was it product? Was it training? What was the things that were like, and it's probably not just one thing. We all know, right? It's not one thing
Right.
that usually is, usually a combination.
Yeah, I'd say time management. That's something I kind of developed later on. That's when I really started to see my production grow. Knowing how to talk to potential clients, overcoming objections, finding leads, training. Like there was some training, but it's kind of repetitive, and I felt like I needed something different. But yeah, that was probably, I would say, the biggest thing initially is I really didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I had my license for like 2 months, and I just needed some guidance, and I didn't find what I was looking for exactly. So I think that was one of the big holdups, is just knowing what to do, how to do it, and just talking to my potential clients in general. I was pretty fresh.
Pretty fresh, as that's kind of how we all start in this industry, right? I got a license. Now
Yeah,
what?
now what?
What do I do now? Like, 90% of this test does not apply to my day to day.
Right.
So, what someone teach me actually what am I selling and how to sell it, not, the random regulations for the government on insurance. So, which is good to know, of course, but
Yeah.
not your day to day. So with that, like, let's talk, some of these key areas, like normally we're diving into agents with. At that time, yes, it sounds like training as far as knowing the product really well and how to sell it really well. Was that part of it?
Yeah, for sure. And I think part of it is, I jumped into the health department, and there's so much there. Like there's so many different policies, different deductibles, underwriting. Do you want to go? If you're a broker, you have several companies you can choose from. So it was a little overwhelming at first, and then just finding my right clientele. It was a little bit more door-to-door, cold call, that type of situation, and I didn't think that's what I was getting into. So that was a real struggle for me at first.
And then, so knowing the product and everything first, and then also the sales side. Had you been in sales prior at all? I know you were doing the physical therapy job, but I don't think you were necessarily having to sell clients on the physical therapy.
No, the only thing you're selling clients in physical therapy is just time. Can I come over that early? That's quite a struggle, actually. But no, I actually have very little sales history. My dad has been a salesman his entire life, and actually my mom's been a physical therapist her entire life. So I just transitioned from one of their careers to the other one. But literally the only experience I had in sales was after my freshman year of college at Oklahoma State. I was approached by the Southwestern company, I think, to sell books door to door. So I was shipped out to Greensburg, Pennsylvania, and knocked on doors for about 4 months selling books. That's all they.
And you loved it. It was like everything you dreamed of.
I was good at it, but I didn't love it.
So even better if you could do something you love or enjoy as well while doing it. So yeah, part of getting your license coming in also is, yes, knowing the product, having a lot of options, having to learn a lot, especially when you have multiple carriers and underwriting requirements and stuff like that. The next thing, although, is even if you knew everything amazing, is still the sales side, right? Like there's still going to be objections. There's still going to be having to take someone through, present to them and close them and stuff there. And that training and knowing how to do that side too. Was that something also that was like a challenge?
Oh yeah. Like when I'd get people on the phone, I just kind of stumbled my way through it, and not really, I didn't really have a structure on, these are things I need to cover before I move forward, or these are the types of questions I need to ask. I was clueless there, and that's something I definitely learned through the Closers Click. Hitting certain parts of the sale, one call close, first 30 seconds, keeping them on the phone. All those things were nothing I had experienced before, and then didn't realize how important they were at that time.
So talking about time, talking about knowing the product, talking about sales, and then, the other thing that goes along with this is having a pipeline, right? Like having people to sell. How was that? Did you feel like you had kind of a steady pipeline or stream of pipeline or options, or it was kind of like find some people and go sell them?
Yeah, it was very much find some people. I was collecting business cards. I was going to community buildings, collecting as many business cards as I could to call. And I found zero joy in doing that because, most of the people that you're contacting there aren't expecting you to call them, which is much different from what I'm doing now. But yeah, I did not like that process very much.
Okay, so we talked about some of the challenges, the stuff that was going on. And it sounded like you got to the point like, hey, I would like to eventually transition out of this physical therapy job. I would love to ramp up the insurance side and ramp up my production, my income, and because that's something that needs to happen in order for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you had the support of Jamie and everything as a team, really diving into that as well. And so we talked about that already. You made the decision. You said, hey, I'm willing to learn the things, do the things I want as far as coming in the Closers Click. So we're going to talk about what changed, what shifted, what were the impacts. Tyler's already alluded to this a little bit, but let's talk about, what would you say were the biggest needle movers in your business that really helped you make that quantum leap in such a short amount of time?
Okay. So I joined the program and started getting locked into that, learning things regarding social media, which was super uncomfortable for me at first and still is to this day. I mean, I'm not comfortable with everything in regards to the social media aspect, but I understand how important it is. And that just learning how to, track your progress, track your calls, track your your lead money in, your income, like all these trackers that are very essential to your progress. I say another thing that probably is one of the most important things was just how to handle the mental toughness of being told no. And, people yell at you and shrug it off, move to the next one. And I think that's something that you absolutely have to have if you're going to have any success in this industry. And I think I had that going into it, but I think learning some other techniques and just understanding that everybody's going through the same thing, that I think it helped a lot. And having people just to talk to about what you're dealing with. I mean, so like I've had some really good months, but then I could go, a week and a half, 2 weeks where not much happens, as you know, because you usually get to hear about it. So yeah, just having people to support you, it's a huge deal. But time management. So after joining the Closers Click, I don't want to go into the final expense part of it yet, but I noticed, I need to really set apart time just to do this. So I broke it down and was like, all right, Tuesday, Thursdays, I'm not seeing patients. I'm only going to be doing insurance related tasks. And if I get asked to do, some kind of therapy on a Monday, I'll say I can see him on a Wednesday. If I get asked to do some type of therapy on Tuesday, I can see him on a Friday. So I just made sure to block out a couple days during the week. And then also during the weekend, we sat down, had a conversation with my wife. I was like, hey, there's going to be 4 or 5 hours Saturday, 4 or 5 hours Sunday. I'm dedicated to insurance. If I'm going to get to the point where I can do this full time, I've got to start building out, a book or something and to get better skills. I mean, the more you call, the better you get. I mean, there's probably people I called the first 3 days that I didn't make a sale or help a family, that if I got them now, I could probably not only help them with the plan and get 3 of their family members' plan as well. So it's just you learn as you go, and I think having the mentorship definitely helps.
Love it. Just need to the mental fortitude as well. So we talked about mental fortitude. We talked about the time blocking. You started to put that in place off the bat. And those are some of the first big changes you made, as well as learning, obviously, strategies and additional sales and social, and started to put those stuff in place. So you started doing that and started you know what? I want to make this change shift. I'm willing to do things to do that. So what then happened next?
So while I was doing, my part-time stuff, I was in home health. So obviously the days I wasn't calling, for the insurance side, I had to figure out a way to still make use of my time efficiently when I was doing therapy. So I'm driving from house to house, and the company we work with, you can get in and you can actually hear other people do sales calls. So I literally, if I was in my car going from a patient to a patient, I was in that room listening to other people who have done this for however long and are super successful, just listening to them. And that was the best education I could get. So I think just being efficient with my time, even in that aspect of it, whereas, I could have been listening to music or a podcast or something like that. I was just making sure that every minute I had, I was putting towards getting better at what I was trying to do. So that helped a ton. And then finding a good lead source was also big time. So yeah, those are the 2 biggest things I'd say.
Love it. So I want to ask a little bit of the shift. So what was that made you, I guess, curious, open, interested in a shift, potentially from primarily focusing under 65 health to what, if I believe your quote was, I have no idea what that is, but willing to learn it for final expense.
Yeah. So it's actually one of these. You got David Price on, and I can tell you exactly where I was sitting. I was about to go, I think, okay, so these run at 3 to 4 my time. I had a 3 o'clock patient. I pulled into the apartment complex, parked my car at like 2:55, and I was reading about this David Price guy, and I was like, man, I kind of want to watch this. So I literally missed that entire visit and sat through one of these for an hour, just listening to David and you go back and forth and talk about his experience. And I missed that visit. This finished. I signed up with Senior Life that minute, and then I think I was contracted the next day, and I was like, okay. Literally prior to that, I had through the Closers Click, I had heard about the Den Insurance, and I remember asking about it, and someone responded. They said, "Yeah, that's our final expense industry," and I was like, "What's that?" And they're like, "Well, that's like burial insurance." I was like, "What's that?" I have no idea what that is. So I had no idea what it was. I listened to one of these, and next thing I knew, that was the route I was going.
Love it. I don't think Ella was right in the comments. I don't think I've heard this story before ever. Like,
yeah.
I don't think I'd heard that story as well. Tyler literally just like blowing off an appointment in order to. I mean, he was busy. But yeah. So, and making that big shift. Little did he probably know what that shift would look like for him, which is what we're going to definitely dive into. Made a big shift in your business, whether it was something you heard. Let's talk about that, Tyler. Both the shift into insurance in the first place, the shift into, hey, I want to focus on the things to make the difference, and then also the shift into, final expense. What advice, or, especially for people that may be considering going through that, do you have for them as well? Because I have to admit, there's usually always some fear around a shift, or some hesitation, some like belief even that comes into that. Was that present at all in any of those decisions that you made?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like I consider myself confident in my abilities to do a lot of things. And I knew if I set my mind to it, and if I put in the work and learned what I was going to be doing, I could be successful in it. And then I think the commitment from transitioning to physical therapy to insurance, that required me to study for an exam, which I hadn't done in 10 years since I got my physical therapy license. And I dove right into the exam, and I had that test passed in like a week, just because I was committed to it. So then when, I decided this is what I'm going to try to start working my way toward, I just made a commitment that in order for me to be able to stop doing therapy, I have to be successful in this, because I have to help support my family. So that was just another commitment, because I know I've had this goal to stop doing therapy for the past 3 months. And every time I'd get on with David and Elle, like, hey, you put in your 2 weeks yet? Hey, you put in your 2 weeks yet? I'm like, a little closer. A little closer. Yeah, I think just commitment and knowing your goals and knowing exactly what you need to be doing in order to take that next step.
I love it. Not being afraid of investing in yourself, investing in your future, and making the changes that you need, because we all know change doesn't happen without change. So, and that's Tyler decided to make the changes. I love it. So before we start talking a little bit about the future, I want to talk about what happened over the last few months. We talk about the 3 times of production in 3 months. Walk me a little bit through that growth, what you put into place, and honestly, that success that you had in doing so. Was that, I kind of want to hear your thoughts on that journey and what you did and what that looked like. Because it wasn't without frustrations, as you know. I get to hear those sometimes, but yeah.
So you're the primary person that gets to hear those, other than my wife. So I signed on at the end of January with Senior Life to do final expense. The next 2 weeks, I went through onboarding, was learning about final expense, how to write an app, just learning everything I could about it. The times I wasn't in the onboarding process, I was listening to other people do it. So I didn't have to memorize a script. I'm just hearing it over and over and over. And then anybody that I ever asked, like, hey, I'm getting started, what would you suggest? Listen to other people do it. Listen to successful people do it. And still to this day, I get on and I learn something. You just hear something that you have never heard before, and you're like, oh, that's how they handled that. Or you see something that you've been faced with, and you didn't handle it well enough, and you weren't able to help that family. And then you hear someone else get the exact same scenario, and they handle it completely differently. You're like, oh, okay. So it's all a learning process. I mean, just listening to other people do it is huge. In February, I think I did just shy of $9,000 in annual production, working part-time. And that was probably 2 or 3 weeks. I still think I was training at some point. I still remember, I would get in the trainings and I was like, all right, do I feel comfortable making a call yet. No, not quite yet, but I'm close. And I just remember telling, I think it was either you or Levi, I was like, hey, I'm taking calls by the end of this week. And that was it. I was taking calls by the end of that week. So February I did just shy of 9,000. March I did right around 17,000 AP. April I did 18. My team did 25. And then this past May I just was short of 20,000 by myself.
And and that was up until
So
very recently, until like a week ago, 2 days a week that you're really committed fully those 2 days, but you're still running 9 physical therapy appointments a day outside of that, and baseball or softball and family, and so balancing a lot. And I think a lot of people, even full time, would be like, man, I would love to do close to 20,000. And so I'm really excited to see what the full-time life looks like for Tyler. But I mean, I think it helped to see the wins. I think they think that was nice, probably because it is something where you can quickly see things. There's no like, oh, this is an underwriting for 3 to 4 weeks. Hopefully that gets approved. Or also like, I think it's nice because it is simple and straightforward, right? Like there's not like a million things, stuff all over the place. I think, has that been a factor for you of like when you're implementing your business and strategy, that it's almost like a system that you can do over and over?
Absolutely. I mean, once you go through the process to learn it, which doesn't take very long, I mean, you're repeating the same thing over and over, finding out what people need and seeing if you can help them. And it's that simple. What does David and Doug say? It's a business plan. It's so simple. You can it's a plan so simple it fits on a business card. So like, I mean, it's once you learn the process, it's just a matter of, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, it takes commitment, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes, learning from your mistakes. I just finished the Go for No book, which I thought that was an excellent book. You just gotta welcome no, and you gotta learn from it. And I think that's something that I'm done well about, just moving on to the next one. If I don't get that one, just on to the next call. I know I think I probably make the most calls out of most of your agents. That's what I'm just committed to do. I'm like, all right, dialing until it's bedtime.
I love it. And so taking the action, putting that stuff in place. And guys, we're talking all lines of insurance, everything in the business. I know we mentioned FE, but this goes in the same things: is the commitment, a plan, time, accountability, learning the strategies that you need to put in place, and being able to hold yourself to executing those things. So once again, this applies no matter what line of insurance you are. It's doing these things and having those things. And unfortunately, a lot of the industry, it is, here's a contract, good luck, figure it out, and have fun. And honestly, that's tough. I mean, unless you come in with a lot of sales, marketing background, other stuff, then it's not going to be fun times when that leaves you like that. And so that's why we exist in the first place, I think, is because people really need those things. We know they need those things. We know we do those things very, very well. And we love talking and training and teaching on those things. So awesome. So with that, Tyler, let's talk about the future. What's going on. So Tyler, what's ahead? What are you most excited about as you make that transition into full-time agency owner?
Yeah, I'm super excited. And I mean, scared as well. I'm a good scared. I'm super excited because I know I've seen what I can do with the right mindset, with the right commitment on a part-time basis. So it only makes sense that if I keep the same mindset, I keep the same commitment, that I'm going to double what I'm doing now. So that's what I expect. I expect to double what I'm doing now. I have very high goals for myself. I want to build a business. I want to bring agents in and teach them what I'm doing, show them how to do it, help them along the way. I want to build that agency. That's a big goal for me. So yeah, I've got pretty high goals set for myself. Eventually I want to be doing this well enough for my wife to have to work full time. She can be part-time, take a lot of stress off of her. And then eventually I want to build where I have passive income, where, I build a good enough agency where I'm just there to help them and just watch my agency grow.
I love it. Building your own sales and production, then building your team, and then having a agency where you're helping support them, doing the same, building their production, building their team as well. So any other things you're excited about for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready for full time. Like I said, it kind of went done with therapy. Hey, I get to be full time. But first, I'm going to take a vacation. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to go on vacation, but I also want to go full time. So I'm just ready to hit the ground running, just to see what I can do. It excites me that, like, if I can continue to do the progression that I'm doing right now. I know for 2 or 3 years I was looking for something else to do that would fulfill me and like unlock my potential. Like, because I've always wanted my income to reflect on my abilities and my effort, and hadn't quite found something that would allow me to do that yet. So I'm excited to not only grow my business and grow my potential, but then to offer that to other people and kind of teach them how I did it and how you can do it too. It's not that hard. You just got to understand it and be committed to the process. So yeah, that's good things ahead.
I love it. I love it. We're excited for you as well. And we know big things are coming.